Welcome to module 1 of this course. This is the big 3, and it's such a beautiful thing to start with because your big 3, which we'll go into, really captures the essence of who you are. So you can look at your big 3 or someone else's big 3 and really get an understanding of who they are at a very basic level, of who they came to be, right? At a very basic level. So we're gonna start by going into your sun, then into your rising, and then into your moon sign. Those are your big 3 signs, and really go through the process of what each one represents, the energy behind each one, and then you're going to go into your own chart and you're going to look at those 3 things and really get a better understanding of what they are and what they mean for you. When people think about astrology, the first thing they think about is their sign, right? What were they born under? Oh, I'm a Capricorn. Oh, I'm a Libra. That is considered your sun sign. That is where the sun was shining in the sky at the moment of your birth, at the moment that you took your first breath. So in order to find your big 3, you're gonna have to have the time, date, and place of your birth. You definitely need an exact time for your birth. So if it's 12:05, if it's 1:35, whatever the time is, you're gonna need that exact time, more so for your accurate moon sign than anything, but you're gonna need your exact time. So if you don't have your exact time, you can go and try to find your birth certificate or go and try to find your birth records that has it on there. Ask your mother what time you were born and or your father. And there are so many different ways to get your accurate birth time, as well as something called rectification, which some astrologers do. I do not do rectifications, but that is simply using your chart and your life experiences to backtrack to find out the exact time of your birth. So you can actually find out the exact time of your birth without knowing it with an astrologer that does rectifications. When you have your accurate time, place, and date of birth, you want to go ahead and put your information into a free online calculator, a birth chart calculator, and a really good one that I use is at astro.com. There's also Astro Cafe and other ones, but astro.com really is super accurate and uses very high-tech systems. So if you don't have anywhere else to go, I would start there. And you are able to see your chart. So there are different ways to view a chart, and you can view your chart in the wheel format, which we'll go over in another module, in a stacked format, which I don't use personally. So when you see your wheel format, you're going to see little signs or symbols called glyphs, and glyphs are just symbols that are used to represent the planetary energies. So you'll see a little moon glyph or a little sun glyph, and you'll understand that that is representing where your moon was at, and that is representing where your sun was at. So we'll get into the wheel in a little bit. I just wanted to give you that information so that you could find your sun, moon, and rising if you didn't already know what they were. So your rising, by the way, is also called your ascendant sign. So now that you know your big 3, it's time to actually dive into what that means. We're gonna start, like I said, with your sun sign. Your sun sign is where the sun was shining when you were born. And that sign, whatever it is the energy that your ego came to embody. For example, if you are a Capricorn sun, or your sun sign is in Capricorn, meaning you were born in December around the Capricorn time, then you are here to embody, your ego is here to embody the energy of the sign of Capricorn. So the best way to describe the sun is the ego. The sun is the persona. The sun is who you're, in a sense, kind of learning to become in this lifetime. Your ego is your sense of self, your identity that you create to really move through the world, to move through life. And it is your spirit. That's also what the sun represents, is your spirit, okay? So when someone says when someone dies and they say oh, the spirit of that person will live on, or the spirit of a Michael Jackson or whoever, or Whitney Houston will live on, they're talking about their ego. They're talking about the persona that they've created that the world knows. And the beautiful part about the sun is that it works in direct conjunction with your rising sign. And your rising sign or your ascendant sign is super, super, super important, and it's not emphasized enough, I feel, in astrology in terms of when people are new to it and they don't really know a lot, they're really focused on their sun sign. But your rising sign is so important because it shapes your wheel. Your entire wheel is based around your rising sign. So your rising sign is the sign that represents your personality. It represents how you show up in the world. So the way that I like to describe the rising sign or the ascendant sign, this is the sign that your sun sign is filtered through. So for example, your sun sign is wearing glasses that filter the world through your rising sign. And so how you show up in the world, how your ego expresses itself is your rising sign. Okay, so here's an example. If you're a Capricorn sun sign, if you were born under a Capricorn sun, you're going to have the characteristics, your ego is going to have the characteristics of that sign, of Capricorn. However, if your rising sign is something like a Leo, which is a lot different than the energy of Capricorn. If your rising sign is a Leo, you're going to express yourself, you're going to express your Capricorn nature in a Leo-like way. So the way that people are going to see and perceive you is going to be in a Leo-like way. So you're going to draw more attention to yourself than a Capricorn that has, say, a Virgo rising or has a different kind of rising, because your rising, your personality, your ascendant sign is the sign that represents how people see you, because it's how you show up in the world. So it's the glasses that your ego wears, your sun sign wears to show up in the world, and it's what other people see you through. So it's not necessarily the full and total truth of who you are, it's just how you decide to show up in the world. Your rising sign is so important, like I said, because it shapes your wheel, it makes your wheel what it is, and it shapes the events that happen in your life. So people that have the same rising sign, for example, like I said, Leo rising, their first, second, third, fourth, fifth, all their houses, which we'll get into, are going to be in the same positions, which means that all those people are going to have similar experiences in one way or another in their life, but it's going to play out differently because they're different people with different charts. But the main thing to remember about your rising sign is that it is the glasses, or it is the lens in which your ego, the sun, expresses itself. If you're a Capricorn sun, like I said, with a Leo rising, you're going to be a Capricorn, of course, you're a Capricorn, but your expression of yourself in the world is going to look in a Leo-like way. It's going to be more expressive than a Capricorn would be. It's going to be more out there than a Capricorn would be, even though that person is a Capricorn. So that's why I say rising signs are so essential to know, because when you look at someone and you're like, they're a Capricorn, it's because that person with that Leo rising is going to show up as more of a Leo-like Capricorn than a Capricorn sun, Capricorn rising, Capricorn moon. Totally different individual. So that's why I said your big three is so important to understand, like a snapshot, a quick snapshot of who somebody is and who you are. Let's move on into the moon sign. Now, the moon sign is your soul. So remember I said that the sun sign is your spirit, the moon sign is your soul. So the moon sign is what represents who you've been before, right? It's past life you. It's the energies, the lessons, the things that you brought over from your past life into this life. So it is the core of who you are. It is your true self. It is you. It is the you that you show your friends and family and your partner, your closest people. It is what you keep so tightly to your chest because you don't want to show it off the bat to people that you don't know. So that's why we have the rising sign, because the rising sign is almost like the mask that you wear. And it's very unconscious, and it's very much like just something that we do because that's how we're programmed. But the true self, the true you, is your moon sign. The moon sign can represent women in your life, your mother, your grandmother, your sisters, women that you know, just as your sun sign, which is a masculine energy. The moon sign is a feminine energy. So it represents feminine energy in your life, just as the sun sign may represent some masculine energy in your life. It really represents your emotional self. And most people, depending on where their moon is in their chart, are going to keep that very close to the chest because they don't really want to show their, their real self right off the bat to people. So they kind of have a poker face, which is your rising sign. The moon sign is so deep and so profound, and it can tell you so much about where you've been and who you've been. So for example, if you have a moon sign in Libra, You may have been a peacemaker in a past life because that's the energy of Libra. You may have sought for balance in a past life in one way or another. You may have had trouble making decisions in one way or another in a past life. And these things will show up in your very private life because the moon is a private sign. It is receptive. It is the feminine principle. Meanwhile, the sun is pushing out energy. It is the masculine principle, okay? So there is such a beauty of how these two signs work together and how these two planets and energies work together, but understand that they are very much opposite because one is masculine and one is feminine, and one is how you outwardly show yourself to the world, the sun, and one is how you inwardly in your private life are your true core self, and that is your moon. And your moon is so important when it comes to understanding how to heal the feminine within yourself, understanding how you deal with your emotional body, because the emotional body is so important here on earth. That is the big three in a nutshell. And so I'm gonna go ahead and just give you an example or two of a big three and how you can use that and then go to your chart and see your big three and really start to understand a little bit more about yourself. So for example, I'm just gonna go with the example that I had before. Capricorn sun, maybe a Leo rising, and let's say the moon is in, let's give it an air moon, Aquarius, okay? So the energy of Leo and Aquarius are already opposite energies. But if we have an Aquarius moon, a Capricorn sun, and a Leo rising, that's gonna be somebody that embodies that Capricorn energy, like I said, in a Leo-like way. So they're going to be an expressive Capricorn. Depending on where things are in their chart, this can change, but more likely than not, they're going to be a Capricorn that expresses their style, their sense of self. When you look at them, you wouldn't necessarily think Capricorn. You'd probably think something more fiery. You'd probably think something more theatrical, something more Leo-like. So the way that they dress, the way that they express themselves through their words, through their actions, through what they do for a living, all kinds of things are going to be a little bit more expressive, a little bit more fiery than a Capricorn normally would. And then with an Aquarius moon, this is somebody that their emotions are processed so differently. There's an aloofness, there's almost a distance from their emotions in a sense, and a distance from their emotional body in a sense, because Aquarius energy is an energy that does require a little bit of distance. It's an air energy. With a person like that, that's a very interesting individual, because there's so many different things going on. We have earth with Capricorn, we have air with Aquarius, we have fire with Leo rising. That is a very interesting individual. It's somebody that you would meet and you would be like, huh, they're very interesting. I can't really put a finger on, you know, like what they are, because there's so many different things. And then having an Aquarius moon, they're going to be into some really different things in their private life, and you may never even know that they're into these things. It's so interesting to see how big threes play out in people's lives, especially when they're in such a different element like the three that I just showed you. So another example would be someone that has maybe, let's say, a fire. So maybe they're a Leo sun, Leo rising, and a Sagittarius moon. Now this is going to be somebody that is going to be very hot and very fiery, and I mean hot in like the physical and hot in like the energy, right? Because Leo risings are usually very attractive, usually like draw your attention right off the bat. Very much the person that's gonna light up the room when they walk in. You cannot miss this person when they walk in the room. And then with a Sagittarius moon, like they're going to be flighty, they're going to have fun, they're going to be in and out, here for a good time, not a long time. Like they're going to be someone that's unforgettable for sure, but maybe a little bit too fiery for someone that might be very earthy, or someone that might be very water especially. So it's so beautiful and interesting to see how big threes play out in someone's life. And when someone gives me their big three as a practitioner of astrology, it is a very easy way to get a quick intro to that person, an intro to their energy. And when you start to become good at picking up on these energies intuitively, you can sense at least the energy elementally of someone's rising when you meet them. because you'll be so attuned to what it's like to be around a Pisces rising, what it's like to be around a Virgo rising, what it's like to be, you know what I mean, to be around an earth rising versus a water rising, or a fire rising versus air rising. What I want for you to do is to go and get your chart, like I said, and to look at it, and really all you need to focus on and not get confused by everything else is your sun, your moon, and your rising, your ascendant sign. And then look into those 3 signs and really intuitively feel into how they show up in your life. Think about the way that you are responded to by people around you. People around you are likely going to respond to you based off the energy that you're giving. So Virgo rising would give a very analytical, a very quiet, a very observant energy, as opposed to a different kind of rising sign. So someone might comment and say like, wow, that person, they're very observant. Like they don't say very much, but they seem to observe a lot. Or they might say it to you like, you don't really talk a lot when you're around new people. It seems like you're kind of feeling them out. So think about that as you're going through your big 3, and I promise you, you will be very, very surprised at how much that you really unconsciously, exhibit these behaviors. And once you're aware of them, you can now use them to your advantage, and use them to help you to heal, and use them to help you to become who you are to become. So I hope this was helpful to you. We're gonna go ahead and move right on into the next video. I'll see you there.